This is my DJ set. Let's see, here's the Project 89 and Aaron Volta. Or maybe this is Fisher, Take It Off. Forget. Yeah, I just put the, well, at least I put the list so people could look it up. How's it going? Yeah. We could turn on the, Soren, we could turn on the AC. Oh, or that, yeah. I also did not get the memo that it was warm today, so. Let's see, today is March 31. Down. This one's the home place. after wires here. Classic little fade out here. All right. So welcome everyone to session number 3 of EDM 101. Last week we talked about drum patterns, programming our own drum patterns from scratch, adding in a simple bass line, and mainly starting to put together like an energetic progression to make the track feel like it has a sense of going somewhere. We're building things up over time and starting to create something that sounds like a song. So today we're going to talk about kind of the last main element we need to really have like a proper song, and that's the lead, or you can call it the hook. The thing that people are going to like, that is the signature thesis, focal point, key idea of your song that people, if it's a melody, maybe it sticks in their head afterwards, or, it's just the thing that makes it not just a bunch of background sounds, but like, oh, I'm listening to something that's telling me a message. Okay, interesting YouTube streaming note. You can play copyrighted music live. It just, your recording will get demonetized, so good to know. So before we get into the main content for today, let's listen to some beats that people put together. So let's start with Rob's. Let's see what you got here, Rob. Crank the volume here. All right, nice. Good, gradual introduction to new elements. Oh, sorry, autoplay. Yeah, nice gradual adding and removing of new elements. Good job pulling out the kick and the bass here to create that sense of anticipation. Yeah, and we'll gradually make it more and more interesting to listen to. But yeah, nailed the basic assignment. So I think the mixing of the elements was nice too. I think maybe the octave of the bass line could have been down another octave, or maybe even 2 octaves potentially.
I was just following like the template we did last week because I just had no idea about that stuff. But
yeah, it's something you'll like hear more and more over time. But another way you can check is, let me drop the link to this. So I've been using this EQ8 plugin a lot. Y'all have seen, to kind of visualize the frequencies. It's not available in every version of Ableton, but there's this really nice set of free plugins from a company called Kilohertz. And now that we all know how to install VSTs, they have a graphic EQ that'll show like where the frequencies of your sounds are hitting, so you can use the same like technique of making sure your bass is in the bass region of the frequency spectrum. So here we go, free effects. So yeah, I would encourage y'all to install this pack. A lot of good stuff in there, especially if you don't want to get the full. It's even got some stuff that doesn't come with Ableton as well. So really nice set of plugins there. But yeah, good homework assignment, Rob. All right, let's see what Sam cooked up. Huh? Nice. Good use of that bit crusher effect there at the end, or the down sampler. That's what kind of brought in that like gritty digital kind of quality to the sound. Yeah, good use of like that low pass filter to gradually bring in the drum loop, and then filtering it out right before you're switching into the drop. You had a nice like kind of snare roll there too to take us into the as part of the build up, taking us into the drop. I like too the sort of like kind of fake out idea. So when the drop hit, you didn't just immediately throw the drums in. You were like, okay, let's just hit them with that like big bass sound, which is already going to be like, it's going to grab a lot of attention. It's going to be really hard hitting. It's a lot for the listener to take in, and then that also creates like one more anticipatory moment when you do bring in the drum and bass hit. So really nice arrangement trick there. And then you even had like kind of a little motif with that little sound that was well placed, kind of create a callback moment there at the end to kind of bring it home. So like even in not even a minute of audio, but it still like had a sense of progress to it. So bass might have been a touch loud compared to the drums, but it is drum and bass, so I don't think anyone's going to complain that the bass is too potent. So, yeah, nice work. Was this a drum loop that you got from a pack somewhere, or did you program the?
I found an online like drum and bass tutorial and just like pieced it together. So it was like a little manipulation, but it was pretty much just the standard drum thing, and then I put together the melody for the bass.
Did you program the break, the drum loop pattern yourself in MIDI and then like based on a image, or did you just have the loop and then you manipulated it? Like
I just for the drums.
Like this part here at the beginning.
Oh, I didn't use a top loop. I found like a top loop sample. Yeah, I know that.
Okay, nice. Yeah, tops. If you're searching on Splice or something, tops are like higher frequency percussion sounds like hi-hats, rides, some snares, and that's something you would layer on top. Fills out the high frequencies. So that's a good word to know to look for. And yeah, was the bass, was that like a preset you found, or did you program it yourself?
I was struggling to find the right preset, but I eventually found something that was like Serum based. You got a free trial, Serum, and then found that together.
Nice. Yeah, Serum's a great synth. It's one of the most popular ones. A lot of great presets for it out there. It is a little expensive, but you can rent to own on Splice. So that's how I acquired it. Just paid $10 a month until I eventually had it. It's even more expensive these days. But another resource is this website called Preset Share if you want to look up some Vital presets. A lot of free ones here. I'll drop this link. Cool. And then where'd you get that the vocal thing?
I got that in Splice.
Nice. And yeah, those little vocal hits thing too, that's something you can record. Like you can, feel free to use your microphone to like record little, like yourself saying, hey, or if you want to record a clap or any kind of like random little sound effects, that can also be a way to get kind of your own signature sound in there too. So you're not only using samples from other people's packs. But nice work, Sam. All right, let's see what Noah cooked up here.
This isn't the homework, but it's just my take on the transfeed from the tutorial video and last video.
Perfect. Nice. Yeah, I like how you started the bass line off on just like one note, and then when the drop hits, you introduce kind of more of a riff melodic idea. That creates a nice sense of progression. Adding elements is one way to increase energy, but taking an existing element and making it do something more complex or interesting is another great way to get more juice without having to like introduce whole new sounds. I think probably your kick drum could have been louder. Especially when you had that tom, when that came in, that was kind of dominating in the low frequencies spectrum. It can be hard to hear on headphones. I don't know what you were mixing on.
I was on these and on my studio speakers.
Okay.
But it sounds so different. Like
Yeah.
every speaker headphone sounds so different. But
Yeah. This is like a small mixing thing. And then I don't think I touched on this last week, but we can also, I'll show you all how to add velocity sensitivity to your bass lines so we can get some more like volume variation, because a lot of times if you have like that sort of rolling bass line, the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like that can be really good and sound great, but if they're all at the same volume, it can sound kind of like a machine gun, or just like it's just too intense and drilling, and we can make it velocity sensitive so a couple of the hits are like quieter, and that'll kind of create more of a groove that the listener can lock into. So we'll show how to do a bit of that today. But I mean, it looks like you followed the tutorial nicely. And yeah, you even had that little like white noise riser kind of sound there at the end to take us home. That was cool. Yeah, was it easy to follow the tutorial, or?
yeah, it was pretty easy. The track half is harder. That's just because you had the beat like already made mostly, at least the later end of it. But yeah, that was good.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. All right, and last one from Megan, here we go. Nice. I see why you called it clap attack. Yeah, a lot of cool ideas in there. I loved this part right around here where you changed up the, I guess it's bongos. I think
It's all bongos, but I just used like a different rhythm and I changed the pitches.
Mhm.
So from one pitch to two pitch, like a 1-5.
Yeah. Okay. That was really effective. I thought, like,
Yeah.
because we were locked in that groove, and then you switched up a little bit. And it's like, ooh, fresh. Love it. And how are you doing the like those kind of
Honestly,
sounds?
I'm not sure. And I wanted to ask about that.
Okay.
It was really. I was trying to. Again, like I just used a basic clap sound.
Yeah.
And I was trying to manipulate it more again by breaking up different notes, different pitches. I was actually intentionally going for like a samba rhythm that I was trying to remix.
Samba,
And
okay.
basically, I wanted the clap to have more like a staccato sound, so I
Sure.
was playing with velocity.
Mhm.
And in the speed setting, I just hit something, and it took like the 8 notes I had in the measure and like splintered them into like 15 notes that not quite like a polyrhythm,
Mhm.
but like a heavily significant rhythm against different pitches. That created that sound.
Okay.
And then I just manipulated that a few times. But honestly, I truly stumbled upon it. Like I just was like a happy accident, I guess.
Yeah.
I can show you how I did it, but like I didn't know what I was doing.
Mhm. I mean, professional producers try to make these happy accidents happen by either like, randomizing parameters, setting the synths to extreme settings, having it like an arpeggiator play, and like twisting the knobs in real time. A lot of times, like bass producers will record these mud pies, as they call it. It's just like 10 minutes of tweaking bass sounds, and they go back and are like, whoa, that part sounded really cool. I'm going to clip that out and use it. So you can kind of tap into that like unpredictable generativity, and then go back and like, curate the best bits. So that can be a really effective, creativity strategy. Were you using an arpeggiator? What is the speed setting was it a setting in
changed the
simpler?
speed. Again, I just changed there was like a seed option, like a seed
Okay.
seed drop down, and then I just would tweak the velocity, and that's what, I don't think I arpeggiated anything, because that doesn't sound even,
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're saying, in theory, like it would, but I have a music background too, so that's like not an arpeggio, do you know what I mean? Because it's not an exact chord breakout.
Sure. Well, there's a
Unless
MIDI.
it's like part of the scale that like I'm not.
There's a MIDI instrument called an arpeggiator, which it takes like a certain number of held MIDI notes, and it turns those into like individual
Gotcha.
notes. So
that,
that's something
so that is kind of what happened. But
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's what I did.
interesting. Okay. Yeah, I would be curious to see how you set that up.
Yeah.
But yeah, really nice happy accident, and you were recording it, so you were able to get it. So that was nice. I noticed too you had like a ride cymbal going on like somewhere in here. I think that would also benefit from a little bit of velocity sensitivity to make it a little bit more natural and groovy sounding. So we'll show a little bit of that today. Let's see, what else? Yeah, otherwise nice progression there, and then you pulled back a bit at the end to kind of close it out. So solid work. We'll get some bass and
I
lead
did
in there
remember
too.
about the bass.
It's all good.
Okay.
But cool, good stuff. Anyone else want to share something they worked on this week before we move on to the main content? Cool. All right. So like I said, today we're going to talk techno. We're going to talk leads. And the reason I chose techno is because it's a genre where you don't necessarily need a lot of like melodic or harmonic ideas. You don't need to know a lot of music theory. It can be sounds that are less kind of pitch oriented and still be really effective, kind of industrial-ish. But let me motivate what we're going to do here by showing my viral video. This is a hyrax. It's a kind of desert mammal, and so I sampled a couple of sounds of the hyrax and made it into a techno track and sent it to a few hyrax influencers, and one of them posted it and got a bunch of views. So. 1 minute is all you need, and you can get 666,000 views. All right, so let's see what this looks like in practice. So I have, load up Ableton. I'm also going to drop another free effects bundle in to the chat. Melda makes some really great sound effects. They have like an analyzer as well, so you can see like and for this one we'll use the template track with the drums, bass, foreground, and background. So for techno, a lot of different possible tempos. I really like 150. So we'll start with changing our tempo to 150. And let's start with a kick drum. So we're also going to get into a little bit of sound design here. So with techno, your kick drum, you can put a lot of distortion on it, and it creates this really like characteristic sound that's like really beefy and crunchy and hard hitting. So let's grab a kick. Actually, let me turn this down a little bit. Let's get like kind of a shorter one. Let's do this one. All right. So wait, let me load up my simpler or my small less complicated template than this one. Okay, here we go. All right, so we'll get that kick drum.
Are these templates available for us?
Yeah, I think I dropped the link in earlier in the chat. Did I? Yeah. So you can use that, or I mean, it's not super complicated. So if you want to just like start with an audio track, I mean, we can do it that way too. I'll just start with a single audio track. And shoot, sorry, my mic has been muted. Okay, so we'll start with an audio track. We'll set our tempo to 150 because that's a good tempo for techno. And we'll take this kick drum, let's drag it onto the timeline. So here's what that looks like. And now we're going to grab a saturator. So this is a built-in plugin that is really good for adding this distortion effect. So double click on your kick channel, drop the saturator in there. I'll get rid of the EQ8 and utility. And so if we loop this and we start playing with the drive knob down here, there's this drive knob. This is kind of like the amount of additional gain we're putting on the signal to overdrive it. So sounds like this. And this is a setting you adjust to taste, but we want something reasonably juicy. So I feel like that's got some good knock to it. And now we're going to optimize our kick a little bit, so especially the timing of the kick. So we basically want our kick to take up, a good rule of thumb is you want your kick to take up 1/8 note of time. And that gives you plenty of space for your bass to come in for the second half of each quarter note. And depending on what the tempo of your track is, 1/8 note is going to be different amounts of time. So that's why we're going to optimize our kick for this specific tempo. If you have a faster tempo, then your kick is going to need to be shorter to fit within 1/8. And if you have like slower tempo, or like you have a genre like dubstep, we've got halftime drums, your kick can be really long. So you put your is everyone able to put a saturator on a kick sample and then hear what that sounds like when you start turning up the drive?
So what does the drive do? Just
The drive is like the amount of energy you're adding into the signal so that it boosts the volume and I don't want to say the word drive again, but it's like how much gain are you adding to the signal before it hits the distortion circuit. And so the more you turn up the drive, the more intense that distortion sound is going to be. So, you know, when I had it here, right, you hear how it's getting more like splatty and so on. So I'm picking like a relatively moderate value, like 16, just to give it a bit more grit and punch and hardness. And then I'm going to further manipulate the sample. So one good UI gesture to know is what's called bouncing your tracks down. So bouncing your track, it basically takes your audio and it takes all the effects and it renders it into a single audio clip. So this can be a really good way to save CPU, or if you need to do further sound manipulation that involves like tweaking the audio file itself, which we're about to do, you would right click on your channel, and if you're on Ableton 12, you can click this bounce track in place. If you're on 11, you have to first freeze the track, but we're going to bounce the track in place. When you do that, you can see, I've got this rendered waveform that has the effect applied. It's got all the distortion on it, and so you can see how it turned it into this extremely square-shaped waveform. So, you know, before bouncing in place, it looked like this, and there was a saturator applied, and then after bouncing it in place, it now looks like this, and you can like the waveform is more intense, it's louder, it's got all the saturation baked into it. Does that make sense? Because now we can further edit it. So I want to make sure this waveform only lasts for 1/8 note. So I'll switch my grid down here to 1/8. And it's basically there, right? Like 1/8 note is this much space. So all I need to do really is kind of trim off this tail here. So I'm going to take the end of my waveform and slide this over. So now it lasts exactly 1/8. And then I want the kick to I want the tail of the kick to kind of roll off in volume a little bit, so it's not just like, it has more of a like a natural kind of decay sound to it. So if you put your cursor up here, you can click and fade out the clip. So it's going to have a really nice strong transient, and then it's going to fade out. And here, in the remainder of each quarter note, the bass is going to have space to come in. So, you know, and I'm fading it out to about where the 16th note is. So, you know, before I do that, it sounds like this. And then after I do the fade out, it sounds like this. So it still's got some thump to it, but it like pulls back a little bit, gives me a little bit more room to breathe. And now I can just make sure this is 1/16. Yeah, I got it right there. And now I can, you know, I can bounce this down as well. So right click, bounce track in place. So now I have my nice like heavy distorted techno kind of kick drum sample, lasts exactly 1/8 note, and so it's well engineered for the track we're going to make. And it can be worth it because the kick is the heartbeat of your sound. It's like the like that driving pulse that the listeners are going to hear. So it could be worth it to spend a little bit of time really optimizing your kick, because then you can build your whole track around that.
Do you mind going over the steps to that whole process again?
Yeah. So start with a kick drum. Sorry. Start with our kick drum. Drag it in. Then we'll grab a saturator effect. Drag that onto the kick channel. We'll push it up. By the way, you can try different flavors of an algorithm for shaping it if you want like a different sort of sound. I'm just going with the analog clip here. Then we turn up our drive, and it's something reasonable like 16. Okay. And then I'm gonna bounce the track so it bakes the effect into the waveform. So I right click here on the track and say bounce track in place. Cool. And then I want to make sure my kick only lasts for 1/8 note, which is this amount of time right here. So I can put my cursor up here so I have the square bracket in the corner, and I just drag this so it ends exactly on 1/8. And then I want to fade out the end of it a little bit for dynamics. So I'll do that over the course of 1/16. So if you put your cursor at the very top right, you have this square bracket. But if you put it right down here, you see these little like fade handles. So I want to fade that out like that. Does that cover everything? Nice. Okay. And then we can finalize that one more time by saying bounce track in place, or you can click the clip and say Control J to render it, or right click and say where is that? Consolidate. So that bakes the fade out into the sample. Let me turn on the lights here before it gets too dark.
We can maybe turn off the projector.
Did not know. Why do we even have that button? Sorry, live stream folks. Got to turn the projector back on. Let's try again. Oh. Let me just go there and press the button. There we go. Okay. All right, my apologies, y'all. There we go. Okay. Okay, we're back. All right, so we got our kick. And now I'm going to show y'all a VST that I don't think I've shown y'all yet. It's called the drum rack, or maybe I touched on it briefly, but especially if you're on Ableton Live Lite, this can be a really good way to save tracks, because you can map a whole bunch of different drum sounds onto a single track. So what we're going to do is search for drum rack, and then click and drag that into this area down here, so you have a new, so it adds a new MIDI track with a drum rack on it. And now you have a bunch of these drum pads that you can drop individual samples onto. And in fact, we can just take our clip directly from the timeline view, and we can drag it into our simpler. Or, well, it's basically 128 instances of simpler all mapped onto different drum pads. But now we can play it directly in here. And we can use MIDI to trigger the sample instead of needing to copy and paste this audio note a whole bunch of times. So instead of doing that, we can just go into our drum rack channel and start making a 4 on the floor beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Or let me turn off loop. Cool. What's up?
I can't seem to drag it into the MIDI track.
Are you clicking up here? Are you so you have your drum rack, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right? Okay, and then you click up here and
Then it seems like
okay, click, let's see.
let me just drag it into this. Oh, like that. Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Let's see, did it do it? Let's see. Well, we want it to be, so we want it to do this. Like that.
So, but in order to do that, do I have to pull it first down into the timeline and then take the sound file and put it in the
No.
track?
So we'll delete this note. So we have our drum rack channel selected, and then we click and drag down into the drum rack here. Can you do that? Can you try that? No, don't click and then release. You have to
Nice.
click, hold. There you go.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, so you,
You sure how you made the notes?
yeah, so after I've got the drum rack set up and I can play it, now I'm just going to create a new MIDI clip like we did last week. So I'm going to select, 1 measure's worth of time. I hit Control-Shift-M to create the clip, or you can right-click and on that time and say Insert Empty MIDI Clip. And then we have our piano roll view that we saw last week. We can change this to quarter notes so that we are typing in quarter notes. And then we'll switch to our pencil tool either by clicking up here, or the B key toggles between pencil tool and selector tool. So then with our pencil we can type in a 4 on the floor beat. And now we can even delete this sample if we want, because Ableton will have stored it somewhere, so we don't need to keep it around in our timeline. So if you do it,
It's not good that we put the kick on C1 of the drum rack. I know we've been working with putting everything using C3.
yeah, it doesn't matter in this case. You can put it on, because with the drum rack, it only gives you the option to type in notes on notes that you have a sample attached to. So, I only have 1 sample in my drum rack, so I only have 1 place I can even type in notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, Ableton comes with a lot of built-in kits. All these, so these are fun to experiment with. Basically, they come with a bunch of samples preloaded onto the different drum pads, so you can play around with them. So could be fun to do. So now I can delete my kick channel. I just call this drums. All right. So for this drop, I want to make it 32 measures long. That's a good amount of time for a drop to take place over. So I'm gonna let's see. So if I start at 5, and I go all the way to, let's see, so 4, 8, 12, 16. let's see. If I go to 37, that should be.
Why don't you start at 0?
Oh, right. So I could start all the way over here at 1, but oftentimes I'll want to have like a little bit of an intro, or I want some space at the beginning to maybe put in something. Like I don't want to, because you can slide everything over afterwards or insert silence. But I usually like to start, somewhere in the middle of the timeline so that I have some space on either side to work with. So actually, I'm gonna go from 17. Let me change this to an adaptive grid. Sorry. Start at 17, and you can see how we have like alternating gray. So like every at this zoom level, every 16 measures, it changes to a slightly different shade of gray. So I want 32 measures of this. So I'm just going to duplicate this until it fills up, 32 measures.
How did you make the 16 the chart rather, where it's like the background? I mean.
Oh yeah. So I'm zooming in and out, and like every 4 subdivisions, Ableton will change the amount of gray. If you want to change the resolution, like here I used an adaptive grid so that depending on if I'm zoomed in more, it increases the resolution. If I'm zoomed out, it decreases it, as opposed to having a fixed grid where it's like always quarter nodes, no matter how much you zoom in. Yeah, so once we have our, so the way I like to work is I like to build in sections, and I like to get sort of like a rough idea down that takes up the amount of time I want, rather than trying to like optimize an 8-bar loop and then building from there. But that's another way you could do it. So I know I'm gonna have like, I want this to be 32 bars, and I'll even like annotate this. So we can right click up here, add a locator that says like, drop. Then maybe at the halfway point, I'll add another locator that says like 1/2. And this gives me some breadcrumbs so I can see like, oh, I'm gonna want to add some kind of like big drum fill right here, or maybe I'll add here at the 1/4 mark, I'll add like a smaller turnaround. But these just give me some signposts that let me quickly get to the different sections and stay organized. So every 8 bars here I have a different locator. All right, so we've got that. All right, so now let's program like a simple kind of baseline. So we'll go back into Vital. Last time we used we just used the default sound, but now let's do a little bit of sound programming to and in the process explain some things about bass. So grab yourself an instance of Vital. By the way, was everyone able to get 32 bars of 4 on the floor kick drums happening? Cool. All right, so assuming you've got that, then grab an instance of Vital, put that in here to create a new MIDI track. And like I said, so this starts off with the default sound. It's like this, bright, buzzy sawtooth wave. For this genre of techno, we want something that's much darker, that doesn't have as much like bright, high harmonics. So one option we could go with is we could use a sine wave. So by default you have the saw, but if we click on the init here, we can change the waveform that we're using. So we'll change. We want to switch to basic. We want this one called basic shapes. Does that make sense? So you clicked where it says init. Let's see. So init preset. You click there, and then you can search for basic shapes, and then you select that. And now we can choose between a whole bunch of different waveforms, including there's the saw wave from earlier. But by default, it starts you with the sine wave. So this is like the simplest waveform you can have in all of audio. In the early 1800s, Joseph Fourier proved that any audio signal can be decomposed into a summation of these fundamental building blocks of sound. Fun audio effect. I don't know, but this is like the simplest sound you can have. It's literally, it's like just single oscillation, one note. And this can be a good choice for bass, but sometimes it's really difficult to hear because a lot of sound systems aren't good at reproducing, especially in the low end. A lot of sound systems aren't good at reproducing notes that are super low. I mean, even this one, like, you can kind of feel it, but it's like harder to hear. So Vital has this kind of like sine plus waveform that adds a couple additional harmonics. So, you know, we look at here, we can see that the sine wave just has a single harmonic, but the sine plus wave has the third and the fifth harmonic too. And you can see how it increases the area under the curve. So this waveform has like more energy to it. It gives off or requires more energy to produce, and you'll be able to hear that it actually has more presence. Right now it has that sort of like rounded kind of quality, as opposed to here, which is like extremely pure. But now we can actually hear it a little bit better. And this can be a really good choice for bass because you can both hear it, or sorry, you can both feel it and you can also hear it. By the way, the logical continuation of this idea is you could completely max out the area under the curve. You get this like buzzy square wave sound, kind of like Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo kind of sound. But we don't need that, again, we don't need that much like high end. We just want a nice like low but still present sort of sine plus sound. So is everyone able to get this waveform loaded in Vital? No. Okay. Clicking on a knit, right? And then, oh, what? Oh, you don't have anything.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just, Did you, okay.
Do we need a separate one?
Wait a second. Are we in, okay, we're in, oh, wait. First of all, we needed to make, you put Vital on your track with the kick drum, so we actually need to, let's get the drum rack, put that on here, put our kick back there. Okay, and now put Vital on a new track, back in here. Okay, now, okay, yeah. Yeah, I guess you need to, it seems like you were able to download Vital without creating an account.
No, you have to you create an account when you downloaded it, but you have to log back in when you use it. So you use the log back in again, and then you'll get all 2 seconds.
Yeah,
Thanks.
cool. So I'll show this a couple times, but okay, so if you have this waveform loaded, all right. So now we'll program like a really simple pattern here. So grab like one measure, insert a MIDI clip, and we'll pick a nice low note like F0. So we're gonna make a really simple pattern. It's just gonna be 2 8th notes. So dun dun, and it's just gonna repeat that a whole bunch of times. So dun 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 dun. So switch your grid to 1/8, and then drop in a bunch of F0 notes. And so that sounds like that. I realize I need to turn down the volume on these channels. And you may be wondering, how did you know to choose F0? Well, there is a chart, subnotes chart.
You did 8 notes for one measure?
Yeah, because we're going to then duplicate it. So it's just 8th notes across the board. I usually just close it. Yeah, so if you need to reopen it, you can click on this little wrench icon here, and then you'll,
Sorry, where's the wrench icon?
on the track with Vital, where the Vital is loaded, it's in the upper left corner here. right, if you're trying to figure out what, let's see, sub note sweet spot chart. Where is that? Okay, here we go. So this image here, so this is, these are off by 1 compared to Ableton. Like instead of F1, it's F0. But basically, you have these notes here, which are really good for your sub note, your like lowest frequency bass note. If you get too low, like below, say this B flat here, then most subs just can't reproduce it, and it sounds kind of like flabby. Whereas if you go too high, like past this A up here, it starts to sound kind of like weak or tinny, or like your track doesn't have a lot of weight. So if you choose one of these notes in here, especially in this green zone, which is where this F is, like that's like a really powerful sub note to choose. So you see a lot of EDM tracks that are in like F minor, for instance, because they tend to sound really good on different subs. So, but don't let all of your musical choices necessarily be constrained by this, but this can be a good starting point. A lot of EDM is about these like really precise optimization choices to get things to hit like as hard as they possibly can. So, so F0. And now if you listen to this, it's actually kind of hard to, it's still kind of hard to hear the sub note, right? It's like, it just sounds like dun. So one thing we need to do to fix that is we need to sidechain the kick to the bass, right? As we talked about last week. So, so we'll start by doing that, just a quick review. So you take a compressor, you put it after your vital instance, and then you click the little triangle icon to open up the sidechain menu. And then you turn on the external button, so it is getting its signal from another track. And then you change the source. This will be your drums. And then specifically, we want our kick drum in pre-effects mode. So here, when you select drums as your source, you're going to change post effects. You're going to change that to whatever the name of your kick drum sound is. You're going to set it to pre-effects. And if you remember from last week, we did this so that later, when we decide to pull out the kick, we can still get that side chaining effect on the bass from last time. So I'll just do that again. So you get a compressor. You put it after your vital instance. Triangle menu to open up the sidechain. Click on external to enable the sidechain. You change your source to be drums, and then you change the specific source to be your kick in pre-effects mode.
Normal on headphones to hear like clicking, like it kind of sounds like my headphones are broken.
Like on the,
From the bass.
does it sound like this? I'm not sure what you mean. Okay, first of all, these are 16 notes, not 8 notes. So we need to change this to 8 notes. And then this is F -1. We actually need
Oh
to
my
be
God.
0.
Like that.
So,
Yeah.
so select you do, yeah, or you can use shift and press that directly. Yeah.
Okay, that was better.
Okay, that's good. And yeah, there will. It's not bad that there's a little bit of clicking at the beginning because the envelope, the volume envelope, has to open real fast, and we're going to address that in a moment too.
Sounds much better now.
Cool. All right, so one last thing for the sidechain is we bring the threshold down so that the kick actually is able to create this ducking effect. Oh, let me turn on the kick as well. All right. So that's one part. But the sub is still not that present, right? It still sounds like it's like dun. And we could try turning it up more and more, but let's actually think about how an actual bass sounds. You pluck a string, right? Initially it's like louder, right? When you're initially plucking the string, it like starts off loud and then the volume comes down a little bit. So there's a little bit of an attack at the beginning, which you can hear, because when we hear sounds, we don't really hear them in an absolute sense. We can hear them better relative to other sounds. So if there's like higher volume here and lower volume here, that gives the human ear something to hang on to. So we're going to recreate that kind of plucking sound. And then another facet is when you're plucking a bass guitar string, at the beginning, the string is tighter. It's like under more tension because you're literally pulling it back and then letting it go. And when a string is under more tension, it's actually higher pitched. So right at the beginning, for a few milliseconds, the pitch of the sound is actually higher than when the string is just freely oscillating. So we're gonna apply both of those techniques to make our bass sound cut through more. It's gonna have a little bit of a pitch envelope at the beginning, a little bit of a volume envelope, and that's gonna give the ear something, percussive to hang on to, and it will come through better.
I don't know what I did, but there's like a red line going through my.
Okay, you probably turn on automation, which is this key. If you press the A key and your keyboard is turned off, then it will toggle automation mode on and on. It's this barbell icon.
I see. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So if you accidentally press A with the keyboard turned off, it'll switch modes like that. All right. So hopefully this isn't too difficult to follow, but so let's start with the volume envelope. So if you open Vital back up, you can take this top right corner here, which maps onto the sustain knob, and we're gonna just bring it down to the left. So now, right at the beginning, it's gonna be loud, and then it's gonna immediately decay a little bit in volume. So you're going from like this to this. So from this, which sounds like. So now it has a little bit of that percussive sound to it, right? Or in the bass register we get. Cool. And then we're going to do the same thing on the pitch. So let's choose a different envelope. Say envelope 2. And we click and drag onto it. Now we can map this envelope onto whatever parameter we want, right? So we could put it on the phase or the unison or whatever. But we're going to put it on the coarse pitch, which is this number over here to the left of the pitch. And then we're going to bring its sustain all the way down so it's like really short-lived. So it sounds like this. Right? We went from, if I turn this off, like nothing, and then put it over here. If I don't change the envelope, it's like saying, keep the pitch way up here. Or if I only bring it down over here, it's going to get this kind of lasery sound. So I want it to decay really quickly.
Explain the concept of an envelope. Like, what is an envelope?
Yeah, so an envelope is a curve that a parameter follows, and so it changes over time. So by default, for instance, envelope 1 is mapped onto the volume. So the volume of the oscillator is going to follow this shape. And typical attack, decay, sustain, release, those are typical parameters you find on an envelope. If you want a more complicated envelope shape, you can also run the low frequency oscillators in envelope mode.
Envelope 1 maps the volume, and then we map envelope to the pitch.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
And mapping it onto pitch gives us that addition. This is like how an 808 bass sound gets its sort of like punchy pluck. And also, if you wanted to synthesize a kick drum from scratch, you'd use this. So you could make like a lasery sort of sound, but we want like a really short one just to give it a bit of knock at the beginning. In fact, we might even want to like make the pitch less intense. So by default, it's 48, which is like 4 octaves. Maybe we want to bring this down to only like, well, easier to type the number in here if we go in the matrix mode. We can change this to 12. So now it's got like, it's got a little bit of a pluck at the beginning. So when I initially mapped envelope 2 onto the coarse pitch, it has a large range. Its range is 48 semitones, which is 4 octaves, which can be a lot. It can make that pluck at the beginning really intense. So I want it to be a little bit more subtle. So I can right click there, type in enter value, and type in 12. Exactly. So it starts 1 octave higher and very quickly goes down to its home pitch. So just enough to give it that like.
Is the other number like I'm just curious, what's the right number on pitch then?
This is fine tuning. So if you wanted to emulate like a warbling analog tape kind of sound, you might put an LFO on this one because it's not as it controls over a much finer grained resolution, but we want like a big range. You can turn it way up and get like a super laser sort of sound. Maybe I'll put it at 24, something like that. So now, with the side chain and the volume envelope and the pitch envelope, now our bass sound actually has a chance of standing out a bit. Yeah. I think in a previous tutorial I made more of like a galloping sort of bass that sounded like this. So this is another option. So 1/8 followed by 2/16. It's like a really, intense kind of techno sort of sound. Maybe I'll decay a little bit shorter. Okay. So I'm actually going to go back to the 2/8 notes just because I want to play around with some variations. But so now we've got like kind of the basic pattern that we'll build on and follow for developing our like techno track. So finally, let's get a vocal going. So there's one that comes with cymatics that I think is kind of funny. Let's see.
It's a how hands up, then we gonna drop.
I'll drop that in the chat. I think y'all should have that one, but in case you don't, so we'll use this one. Not a super techno-y kind of vocal phrase, but gets the job done. Drop that in there. And more importantly, it gives us a chance to practice warping again. So we see that this one is at 128. So I want the vocal sample to play like right before the drop. So I'm gonna zoom in. I've got like one measure here. So this is another reason why I didn't start my track right at 1. Just gonna bring this in here. And so it's at 128 beats per minute. My track's at 150. So I need this vocal sample to like play faster. So I'm just gonna warp it like we did last time. And I know the tempo of this clip is 128. So I'll change the clip's tempo to 128. And now this is like right at the perfect amount of time, right? And it'll sound faster.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
right? So it's like the perfect little lead in here. Was everyone able to get that, find that vocal sample, put it before the drop, warp it so that it is at our home tempo?
So if we should bring the tempo up, the warp to 180 or?
So, yeah, so our project is at 150. The clip tells us,
Hands up, hands.
in the file name, it tells us that we're at 128 beats per minute. So when we warp it, we can tell Ableton, like, hey, this clip is at 128. So then it knows it will speed it up appropriately to bring it to our 150 tempo.
Nice. Does this guy get royalties?
I think this is well, it's one of their free samples, so hopefully it's royalty free. So we can make it more techno-y, so like, especially for dark techno, maybe we want like a lower pitched, kind of more demonic sort of sound. So we can turn the pitch of our sample down a bit with this knob.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
And then if you installed those kilohertz plugins, you should have a frequency shifter, or I think most versions of Ableton have this shifter plugin that comes with them. So this will put on our vocal sample, and we can use it to further bring the pitch down in a slightly different way than just turning the actual pitch down. Frequency shifters usually used more for drums, but you can create some pretty crazy sci-fi kind of sounding effects when it. But
The shifter isn't available in, is only available in Studio.
it might be shifter Ableton.
I don't see that in Studio, so.
Okay, it's not important. If you don't have it, like, just turn the pitch down on your sample. It's like pretty demonic as it is. But if you do have shifter, or if you install the kilohertz frequency shifter, then you can also. Anyway, we don't want to push it up, but I would probably just like bring the fine tuning down a little bit.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
In addition to the pitch.
Yeah, and again, this is to taste, artistic license. Yeah, but just want to make it a little bit more demonic sounding. So if you got that, so this sounds a little dry, or sorry, back up. I want to create more of a lead in here. So right now the song just starts, and then all of a sudden our guy is saying, hands up, then we're going to drop. Like, whoa, coming out of nowhere. So I'll show you all another technique that if we did have a final, you would have to do this for the final. Well, there's no final. So we're going to add some reverse reverb to the beginning here to create a sort of like swooping lead in kind of sound. And once you hear how this is set up, you'll recognize it from like all sorts of pop songs. But so what we want to do, we want to take a little bit of our, actually, sorry, if you did downshift it and such, make sure to, oh wait, I want the frequency shift. So sorry.
Hands up, then we gonna drop. Hands up, then we gonna drop.
There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna bounce that track in place, similar to what we did with the kick drum. So now we have our audio here. So the reverse reverb, what I want to do is I want to take a little bit of the beginning, little tiny snippet. I'm gonna put that into a reverb and get a really long reverb tail, and then I'm gonna reverse that whole sample so it sounds like the guy's going. It like sounds like this. I don't know how to describe it. But so zoom in on your waveform, take a little snippet of the beginning, and then if you hold down Control or Command on Mac, you can click and drag that down onto a new audio track, and it'll take just that little snippet out. So yeah, just a little tiny little bit there. And that's enough for our purposes. It's like we're going to drop this little pebble into our pool of reverb. Yeah, I think.
You have to have the audio clip already.
No. So if this is just at the bottom here and I click this, I hold down On Windows, it's Control. I think it's Command on Mac. Try it both ways. But if you,
How do you select just like that little piece?
so I'm zoomed in. I click. I got my cursor here, and then so now that's highlighted. And then I put my cursor here so it turns up at top so it turns into a hand. And then if I hold Control, I can drag it down. Or
Mine just like breaks it. Like
option. Okay. Another way you can do it is you can select this clip, hit Command C to copy, and then create a new audio track and paste that on. That's another way to do it. I did buy a Mac, so it's not fully set up yet, but maybe eventually I'll bring it in and be on the same page as everyone. But so you get your little snippet of audio here. And then you're going to grab a reverb effect from your library. And drop it on your channel with the little snip here. And a couple things we're going to do. First, we only want the reverb tail. So we're going to turn the dry wet knob to 100% wet. So just the reverb. And then we're going to want a lot of audio material to work with. So we're going to take the decay time and like turn that up. Don't have to get 60 seconds, but I don't know, 10, 15 seconds. So we have a nice long decay. And then I also want to turn off the filter, turn off the low cut and high cut. If I want to later tweak the frequency content, I can put a filter on it, but I want the unfiltered version. So you do those three things, turn the dry wet up, turn the decay up, turn off the filter. Then finally you can right click and bounce that track to place. And so here, I think even more than the kick drum example, you can see why we want this bounce in place, because now I can like take this nice reverb tail and I can do stuff with it. So yeah. So I right clicked on here on the track itself and I said bounce in place. And for some reason it likes to cut the clip into two. We don't really need this first bit here, just the second. And so I want it to fade in for like one measure leading into my audio sample. So I'll take and drag this over here. And then I don't want all this extra stuff. So if you put your cursor here and you press Control E, you can split your clip in two. So I'm going to split it there. And then just delete that extra tail, right? And then finally, I said it's a reverse reverb. So right now we just have the reverb tail, but we need it to go in reverse. We want it to go, fade in. So we'll finally right click on this clip and say reverse. Or it looks like you can press the R key. I realize this is hard to see, so if you double click on the clip, make sure you're not warping it. For some reason, Ableton likes to turn on warp. But you can also increase the gain so we can see a little bit better what's going on here. So you can see how it like starts off quiet and then it gets louder and louder. We can emphasize this more by taking this handle up here and like fading it in. So now if you do all that right, you end up with this kind of sound. Right, so we get this nice like vocal sounding, ethereal, whooshing in sound that creates a like sense of something's about to happen. In fact, someone's track from today kind of had this. They had like a reverse cymbal. I think it was yours, Sam. You had this like reverse sort of effect right before the drop. So these kind of reverses can sound really effective.
How did you do that? Was there something after the reverb to do the reverse? Or?
Yeah, so after I, because like if I don't reverse it, I get this. But if you right click on the clip and you say reverse clip, or you press the letter R. You can toggle it back and forth, and then you can make the reversal even more emphatic by fading it in, so you get this. So if you do all that right, and you may need to adjust the volume here slightly, but
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
right, so see how like artistically this creates a sense of anticipation and like, what does that sound? What's about to happen? But it sounds kind of like a vocal. I guess someone's about to say something. What are they going to say? Oh, hands up, we're about to drop. Great.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
Cool. Do I need to show how to do that reverse reverb thing again?
I just have like my hands up clip doesn't start. It's like there's a slight. It's like I can hear that there's silence between this and this. Like yours is the same clip.
So one thing you could do is you can let the reverse reverb bleed over a little bit. So you hold down Alt, you can like have it slide over, so then it can close that gap. Sometimes you have to do these little micro adjustments to get the transition right.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
Or another one here is like, I might notice, oh, it's actually loudest here. So maybe I want to line up this part with like when the vocal comes in, and then I'll like fade this down so it looks like this.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
And I need to turn down the volume. So you can get real like surgical with it.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
But I think for our purposes here, it doesn't need to be like super accurate, but you can't. But like the ear can discern very tiny offsets there, so it can be worth it to dial in that sound if you notice it like not quite lining up the way you want. Okay. Since we're doing some reverb tricks. Actually, one thing I want to do here is, let's see, this is a vocal. So I'm going to, following our framework of drums, bass, background, foreground, I'm going to take this vocal track, I'm going to right click and group it into foreground. So it's on its own group. And then this reverse reverb, because we're gonna now that we have this nice reverse reverb tail, we're gonna reuse it later in our drop to create like a sense of continuity. So it's gonna be more of a background element. So I'm gonna group this and put it in background. All right, so now we're getting into our drop, right? Sounds kind of dry, right? Like you got the kick and the bass, but there's no texture, there's no background ambience, there's no sauce on it. So let's add some sauce. So a really common way of doing this, and I used it in the Hyrax song I showed you, is we're going to put a percussive hit on the last eighth note right before the drop. And we're going to put a big reverb tail on that. Okay, we'll use a clap sample, and then we'll also sidechain it to the kick. So we'll get some nice ambient texture, and it will like bounce with the kick and sort of breathe. And it will also have the effect of like releasing some of this tension right at the beginning of the drop. So let's find a clap sample. Let's see if there's one in the cymatics folder. That's a good one. This 909 noise clap. I'll drop it in the channel. No, we need to process it separately. So this one. So, and we're gonna use some automation here too. So we got a clap. So, and this is gonna go in the background. So select our background group, press Control, create a new audio track, and then put it in the background group. And then zoom in so you can see you have like 1/8 notes grid resolution. And then take your clap and put it on the last 8th note right before the drop. So this would be like 16.4.3. So.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
Right, so that clap is right there to sort of like, it's kind of like a thunderclap, or it's like, you know, an element that is sort of like a tiny little drum fill, but it helps set off the drop. And then we need like a nice long reverb tail here too. So we've got our clap on the last 8th. We'll drop a reverb on it. And we don't want the reverb to happen right away, right? We want the clap to come through loud and clear, and only after it's clapped, then we bring in the reverb tail. So to do that, we're going to automate the dry wet. So initially we want it to be, you know, completely dry, just the clap. And then right when the drop starts, here at measure 17, we're going to take it to full wet. So you can automate any parameter in Ableton by right-clicking on it and clicking Show Automation. And that's when you get these like red lines you were talking about earlier. So we're going to right-click on the dry wet, click Show Automation, and now we want to make sure that we want to make it 100% wet right when the drop hits. So we'll click here to put a node there, and then we'll click afterwards and drag up and to left. So it's dry, 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 and then boom, wet. And this does kind of create a little discontinuity, but because there's a kick hitting right there, and it'll be pushing everything out of the way with the side chain, the listener won't notice that it's something you can like hide. It's like a seam you can hide. So, and we'll probably also need like pretty long decay here because we want it to like fade out over the course of the drop.
How did you do the decay?
What's that?
You added automation to decay too.
No. So we only want automation on the dry wet.
Oh, I see.
Decay I just turned up.
It's turned?
Yeah, but since I'm in automation mode, it will. Yeah. But I'm check the live stream. Sorry, I realized I haven't been pausing the ads. Okay, so if you do that automation correctly, you should get a sound like this.
Gonna drop.
Right, so now we have this nice long reverb tail.
So does the decay determine that long reverb tail?
Yeah, the decay is like how long do you want this reverb to ring out?
I see.
And it would be like, in an actual space, it would be sort of like, how big is the space? What are the walls made of to preserve the reverberations?
Can you show me how to turn on the automation thing again?
Yeah, if you right click on a parameter knob, or 2-finger click on your Mac, show automation, yeah. Or you can press the A key to toggle automation mode on or off, and then you can just select the effect you want to automate, and then whatever parameter you want here. Yeah. So you hear it. There's one more thing we got to do to get that bouncing effect. We got to sidechain. So we can actually just copy our compressor from the bass. We can drop it on our background group. So now everything we put in the background is going to get sidechained to the kick. So you know, our not important. Now, what's up, Rob? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We've got your clap. It's in the right place. You've got the reverb. This looks good so far. You're just not hearing the reverb. Yeah. it's hitting here. So that's what the automation comes in. So if you go back to here, and you right click on the dry wet, and you select show automation. Now you can change it so it's actually I would switch to the pointer tool here and put a node right at the drop on the red click that and then drag it all the way down to 0, and then click it somewhere else to the right and then click and drag it up and over to the left. So now it's totally dry and then full reverb wet afterwards. So there you go. And then we want to turn up the decay so you have a nice long reverb tail that fills out the space of the drop. Yeah, that's it. Cool. And then you have side chaining, which you can, like I said, copy from the bass. So, right here now how I have that pulsing effect because I added the side chain. So now when I put it all together,
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
and in fact I might even want like more decay than this because there's not a whole lot going on right now. Yeah. So now I've made the beginning of my drop a little bit more interesting. I've given it some texture. It's not just kick and bass.
Did you go back to your compressor in your background?
Yeah. So I basically took so I've got the clap in a background group along with the reverse reverb, and then I went to my bass channel. I just selected my compressor, copied it, and then pasted it into the background group. So now the sidechain compressor is affecting everything in the background group. Does that make sense?
Why is it affecting everything? Oh, it's yeah, sure. I got it.
Yeah, because all these like
Alright, in the back.
yeah. So now we want to start like we've got kind of the basics down, and we want to start like creating that sense of progression in energy in our track. So like so we've got our clap sound kind of decaying.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
So maybe maybe here. So 2 measures in, I'm gonna create like I'm gonna make my bass, my sub for the last bit here. I'll play like 2 16th notes. So it's like dun 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 dun. Right? Right? So that's like a tiny little micro movement. And then maybe 4 measures in, I'll do kind of the same thing with the kick. So I'll switch this to 8th notes and make this one 2 8th notes, which is kind of I did this last week. It sounds like this. Okay.
Where'd you put 2 16ths at the end of the second measure?
Yeah, so in the second measure, for the sub bass, I use 2 16ths at the end to create a little turnaround moment. Then I kind of mirrored that 4 measures in on the kick by putting 2 kick notes.
I think when I drag the bass so that it fills with 32 bars,
Yeah.
and I edit only the second measure,
Yeah.
it edits everything.
Yeah, so that's because you're creating a bunch of linked clips. Yeah. So what I did was I started here and I just duplicated it a bunch of times.
I still don't see what you did at the end of the fourth.
So here on the kick, so here, let me group these together. Or let me consolidate these so they're a little bit easier to see. Yeah, so I have 2 8ths here, and then in the sub I have 2/16. And then maybe, you know, I'll do another kind of movement here in the bass. Maybe, let's see, dun 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 da 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 da. Maybe I'll make like 4/16 here. So, and then for this last one on the kick, I'll do like, maybe I'll do like 2/16 and an 1/8, da da da. Except I'll make this 16th a little quieter, so it has a little bit of dynamics.
So you did the on the 20th bar. You did the two 1/8.
Yeah, and the kick. So 4 measures in, I did this like 2 1/8 notes kind of turn on idea, and then 8 bars in, I did like a slightly different turnaround with these 2/16 and the 1/8. And then I kind of made similar sort of turnarounds in the sub, but you know, after 2 and 6 measures respectively. So this idea of like 2 2 2 2. And by the way, you can I grouped these clips together by selecting 4 of them at a time and pressing Control J to consolidate them together, just so it's a little, you know, easier to manage than a whole bunch of individual clips. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is it easier to manage? Okay, so now at the 1/4 mark, this would be a good time to introduce a new element. And actually, I want to create a little bit of a lead in there, so I'm going to reuse my my reverse reverb here, and I'm going to drop it so it lines up leading into the 1/4 of the way mark through the drop. Except maybe I'll also make this a little bit longer, so because I have plenty of time, I can drag this out so it lasts 2 measures instead of just 1. Yeah. So I took my reverse reverb from here and I pasted it here right before the 1/4 mark, and then I slid this back, so now it takes up 2 measures. And this is just to, you know, create a little bit more interest, because as the clap tail is going to be coming down, then I'm going to have the reverse reverb coming in. So it's kind of like doing this little handoff thing that keeps like stirring the pot, keeps swirling the energy around. And that sounds like this with the clap in there. So. And now, like now at the 1/4 way through the drop mark, that's a good time to add a new drum. You know, something small, maybe like a hi-hat, like a closed hat. And so we have a natural place to put that additional drum, namely the drum rack. So let's pick a nice hi-hat from Cymatics. Closed hat, I think, would be good. Yeah, that's good. So you can click and drag that onto the like some other drum pad note here. Let's say C1. By the way, I wanna continue using those like little kick and bass fills. So I'm just gonna select the first 8 measures here and duplicate those, so I have the same like bass and drum fills in there. But now I'm gonna add like an interesting hi-hat pattern. So because I added that closed hat, now I have this additional lane to add some drums into. So I think something like, let's see, I could just do every other eighth note. That's like a simple way to start. Every other eighth note. But maybe I want something a little bit, maybe I want to throw in some extra like 16th notes at certain points to make it interesting. So like, oh, do I need to slow down?
Yeah, how did you get to this layer view on the drum rack?
Sure. So I have my drums, right? Let me just delete this. So I start by getting a new hi-hat sample from my library, and I drag it into my drum rack. And now when I select, different clips in my drums view, I have this new lane that I can add hi-hat, I can trigger hi-hats from.
You put them on every 8 note.
Yeah, and so here I put them on every eighth note. And that's like a simple pattern. Maybe I want to, maybe I'd want to add like some 16th notes just for interest, but.
So you joined all your clips together.
Oh yeah. So initially when I'm duplicating all those individual clips, I have like, these are all one measure long. But for ease of editing, maybe I want to hold down Shift and select a few of them, and then right-click and consolidate them into a single clip. So I can edit more at a time, or Control-J to do that. Oops. Cool. So I'll just keep it simple so we can keep it moving. But so now you can hear how this like creates a natural progression. So like. Right? Let me pause there for a moment. Let y'all catch up, because now we'll start using little bits from our lead vocal to kind of create some more interest. Okay, so we've got our, like, from a songwriting perspective, we have our main idea here, this hands up, we're gonna drop idea. And one common storytelling technique is to say one thing 100 times, right? Like, stay on message and keep reinforcing the main point, and like reuse your existing material in new ways so that it like creates continuity throughout your track and makes it stick in the listener's head. So especially when you have a vocal sample like this, one really common technique is to reuse the end of it, because we say like hands up, then we're going to drop. So probably later we're going to want to replay that whole clip, but we can use like that drop part at the end as a rhythmic element. So here when we bring in the hi-hat, I'm going to want to like I want to do a rhythm like, let's see, drop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, drop. I'm going to put it on the last eighth note of this first measure. So let me grab, and conveniently, let's see. Yeah, so I'll just grab this. So we got 1/8 note here. And I'm selecting this much time. I'm Control C to copy, and then I'll go here and last eighth note. So it's like right here. So this is putting these lead elements on alternate eighth notes, so not where the kick is hitting, but like off of the kick rhythm, is a really effective place to put them, rhythmically speaking. So we do this. Drop, and then maybe I'll, back off a measure, but then put it here again. Drop, drop. Maybe I'll do like, maybe for the second one I'll take like a 16th note and put it there. So a little bit of rhythmic interest. Or maybe, probably better would be draw up, draw up, that. Done, and then repeat it again. Maybe here's a good time too to bring in a little bit of like delay and reverb on the sends, so there's a little bit of ambience. And actually, so I've done this 3 times. Another common pattern in EDM is to repeat something 3 times, but then do something different on the 4th variation. So instead of just like, repeating what I have here again, now would be a good time to play the whole sample again to, again, reinforce this key thematic idea. So I'm going to take the whole hands up that we're going to drop and put it right before, when the second half of my drop starts. And I can further foreshadow this with my reverse reverb, which I'll bring in here. So now, I've got like, I've added in this hi-hat, which brings in more energy. I've started chopping up the vocal element, which adds something interesting to listen to. And I've got some nice texture here with the reverse reverb. Honestly, I could probably even start it earlier, like here. So even though it's going to overlap a little bit. But now I've progressed the energy and reinforced my main idea. So all right. Were folks able to add in this like lead idea and set up this next like turnaround here? Because now for the second half of our drop, we're gonna like intensify things even more. Maybe one thing we can do in the meantime is, the kick's been pumping like pretty regularly here for a while, so we can create that sense of anticipation by pulling out the kick, classic move. So if we go into our like last 2 measures here, so for this, I want to make sure I have just like, I'll skip that last turnaround. I just have like, 4 kick drums. But now, because we did that side chain in pre-effects mode, now we have a way of, we're going to reduce the volume of the kick to 0, but it's still going to trigger the side chain. So if we go into our drums, go into our drum rack, we select our kick. You can actually put individual effects on individual drum pads. Like we don't want to turn the volume down on our hi-hat, just on our kick. So if we go to our drums, we have our kick selected. We're going to grab a utility. We're going to click and drag it, and you want it to line up here inside, like right next to your simpler, not outside, because that's going to affect everything in your drum rack, but like right inside, so it's just next to your kick. So not out here. You want it to be inside here next to your kick. And then, using that same automation technique, right click on the gain knob, and click show automation. And now we want the kick to go to 0 for these last 2 measures right before the turnaround. And that way we won't hear the kick, but it will still trigger the side chain because the side chain is in pre-FX mode. So even before the utility is applied, we're using that signal. So we'll put a node here at measure 31, put a node here at measure 33, and we can click inside and drag down over to the left and over to the right, so we get this like square shape. We can also do this with the pencil tool. You can click here, drag it down. It could be a little less accurate in my experience.
Would you have your grid resolution set to?
Right now it's 1/1.
But what's the setting on it? Because it keeps...
adaptive medium. So if you set that up right, you'll get the...
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
And then the kick comes back in. And by the way, we'd probably want to, we'll want to keep the closed hats going for the, for the rest of the party. So we'll just make sure that those are all pasted in. So now, and then you might want to make similar edits, so now actually we might want to, instead of just having this dun 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 rhythm in the sub, maybe for the second half of the drop we want like a something faster paced or higher energy. So maybe we'll change to this like galloping rhythm, this like dun 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 idea. So so like we'll have 1/8 note followed by 2/16. And now's a place to show how to set up this velocity sensitivity, because ideally we want this this last 16th in the gallop to be a little bit quieter, so there's like a little bit of pullback, and then we jump back into it. So by default, Vital doesn't support that, or sorry, by default it's not set up. But if we go to our Vital, and down here we can take our velocity modulator, and we can click and drag that onto the level of the oscillator. So now when the note is struck harder, it will be louder, and when it's struck softer, it won't be as loud. So so you just take velocity, drag it onto the level, and now in our clip here, when we have our third note, we can turn the velocity down. It should be a little bit quieter than our main notes, and then we can just duplicate that a whole bunch of times.
So us turning the MIDI velocity down makes the curve in Vital change because of the link we made?
Yeah, so by assigning the velocity parameter to the volume of the oscillator, now when we change the velocity of notes in Ableton, it will make the volume of the sub bass louder or softer. Because without this, it doesn't matter what you set the velocity of the MIDI note in Ableton. It'll all it's just not mapped to anything. So that's why we have to.
Just for Vital, or?
pretty much any synth, you have to map the velocity onto the volume if you want it to.
do that if you're using a drum pad, then it's just volume.
Yeah, so like with synth presets, you already have that set up as well. Just with Vital, like the way it's set up by default, there's no velocity
So
sensitivity.
if you were to change just the MIDI note velocity to 0 without the link we made, it just wouldn't make it.
Right, it would just say the same loudness. And actually, let's see, I'll show, you should be able to hear this. So, oh, by the way, I forgot to do something. In Vital by default, you have this phase randomization parameter set to 100%. So that means that it'll start playing back the note at random points in the waveform. And usually you want this because it creates a more organic kind of sound. But for bass, it's actually better to have like a very consistent sound. Like you want the waveform to be starting at the exact same place every time because it'll sound punchy and consistent. So you actually, I forgot to mention this, but you want to take this phase randomization all the way down to 0. That way you're going to get the same, and actually you'll probably be able to hear that here. So if I have it off, it sounds kind of inconsistent. If I drop it to 0, so for subs and basses, just remember to bring the phase randomization to 0. And by the way, you can save this preset too. So like, if you need a sub bass, you can click that. Sorry, you can click this little save icon here. Type in the name, reuse it later. All right. So that actually should make it sound more powerful. So probably at this stage, we'd want to add like a clap. So you can grab that same, 909 clap that we used for the thunderclap kind of sound. You can drag that into your drum rack, and now we'll put that on the 2 and the 4. Clap, clap, clap. So this adds, this is another layer of powerful energy we add to our drums for the second half of our drop. Another nice drum to add at these like key rhythmic moments is a crash cymbal. So this kind of like helps emphasize the importance of this part of the rhythm. So should be a crash somewhere in here. Let's see what we got. Okay, let's use this one, sure. So I'll put that in my drum rack as well. And that'll land right on the first beat of the second half of my drop. So again, this is like a really important rhythmic moment, so it's good to emphasize it with a crash.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
Cool. And then, and now that we're a little bit deeper into the track, I probably want to like start developing this lead idea further. So maybe I want to play like, let's see, something like dun, drop, 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 something like that. So maybe I'll like play it more frequently. So drop. So maybe instead of at the last eighth note of the measure, I'll put it at like I'll put it at the third eighth note of the measure. Drop, drop, something like this. Let's see how that sounds. Or maybe I'll put it, let's see. Drop, drop. Maybe I'll do like a pattern like this. So it's playing a little bit more frequently.
Can you zoom in? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so these are, so instead of waiting until this 8th note in the measure, I put it, this is the 4th 8th note in the measure. And I left a gap. In fact, I basically am taking this pattern and kind of like dividing the rhythm in two so it like happens more frequently. Drop. And of course, this is stuff you could like, you know, play around with. Drop, 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 drop. And then the third time I'll do something a little different. Maybe I'll do like hands up, then we hands up. Let's see. Hands up, then we hands up. Up. Maybe something like that. Right? So now I'm starting to like, I'm using a little bit more of the vocal to drive the track forward. But I still have this other kind of like thematic idea of just using drop as a recurring element. We'll just go for like 5 more minutes. I know we started a little bit late. And again, I can, you know, now that I'm coming up from the 3/4 part, I can reuse, you know, my reverse reverb, because that's, you know, a nice element to put before, you know, as this turnaround idea. Maybe too, now is a good time to bring back my like the clap, that, you know, the clap with the large tail, since that, you know, that'll be a callback to something that happened earlier in the track. So I can select and copy all of that, and I can put that, right here, so it lines up by that same final 8th note here, and just make sure that you have the automation happening the same way, right? It needs to, so we get that nice reverb tail. By default, when you copy sections of a clip, it'll also copy the automation, so so you can preserve whatever sound manipulation you're doing there. And then maybe I'll take this and just play the whole hands up, and we're going to drop part. So with that,
How can we
yep.
get it to show us the active automation?
If you press the A key, and then you can you see these drop downs on the track, and you can see, okay, what automations does the reverb have on it? Okay, it's got the dry wet. Yeah. So now the last bit here. And then for our last for the last 8 measures of our drop, now we want to, like, this is a good time to introduce one more element that tells the listener, like, hey, like the energy's rising, we're coming to the end of this, so let's make, and Sam, I think in your track you had a like sort of a white noise kind of riser. So we can, I'll just duplicate all this stuff again, so it's like, you know, just something to fill in the space here. So let's make one more sound in Vital. This can go in the background as well, because we want the kick drum to give it that bounce. So we'll put it in here. And this time we will use the saw wave. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to gradually shift the pitch wheel up 2 octaves. We're going to play a note. We're going to shift the pitch wheel up at 2 octaves. So over time it goes like. So By default, the pitch bend range is set to 2. That's 2 half steps, but we want 2 octaves. So we're going to click it and drag it up to 24. There we go.
So we're changing the whole preset.
We're just taking the initial preset with the saw wave. All we're going to do here is we're going to change the bend range from 2
Is
to
this on
20.
our existing vital?
No, this is a new instance of vital. So I took vital, dragged it in here. I made sure that it's in the background group because again, it's not an important element, but it adds some flavor to the track. But it needs to be in the background. And we'll set its bend range to 24. Cool. That's all we got to do there. And then we'll make a long MIDI clip, 8 measures long. And we'll just start it on a single note. So our bass note was an F, right? So our song is basically in F. So we can make our riser an F as well. So we'll take one note and we'll make it very long. Or the note is 8 measures long, effectively. Let's see, is that a good? Yeah, and make sure to turn it down because it doesn't need to be that loud. And then finally, to get it to rise, we're gonna. So once we've drawn out our long note, we're gonna select envelopes. What's that?
I'm sorry, I can't see the note.
Oh, sorry. So here. So I just picked an F. I think F2 is probably good. Yeah, you might have to adjust. Maybe F1 is better. Basically, we're gonna bend it up. So pick an F, make it last 8 measures long. Then you're gonna select envelopes. And down here, so the pitch wheel, that's a MIDI control. So we'll change it to MIDI controls. Should be pitch bend by default. But now we can draw we're gonna draw a curve that just goes up and to the right. So put a node right at the beginning and put one all the way at the end and just drag it up to the very top. And actually you may want to do it ever so slightly before so that it's a little bit, you hear that final F clearly so it doesn't sound like the pitch is off. And then if you do that, you should get this sort of rising sound. So. And then you probably want to, use your reverse reverb one more time to really send it home. You could probably have it playing literally the whole time. And then, of course, end with one last crash cymbal. Yeah. So, in a real track, I would probably do some more probably add some more texture elements, probably add some more drum fills and turnarounds here. But I know I threw a lot of different concepts at y'all. Maybe one other thing we'd want to do too for this last bit is, since we took the kick out for 2 measures in the first half of the drop, maybe for the last part we'll take the kick out for 4 measures. So like that. Yeah.
Did you do an automation to take those things out?
Yeah, so similarly how I automated the utility volume here for 2 measures, I automated the utility volume out for 4 measures last time.
And how do we make sure that's only on the kick?
Yeah, so when we dragged our utility,
Oh, right, it's set in the free, got it.
yeah. there's one thing I didn't get to about texture, and I would probably, you know, chop the vocal up in a little bit more of an interesting way, but these are like, you know, a couple of simple ideas to get you started. But, you know, I'm using this lead vocal sample, and I'm like developing it, reinforcing it throughout the track, getting it to stick in the listener's mind and making it kind of like the signature fingerprint of the sound, while in the background, like gradually progressing the energy of the different other elements, and you know, introducing some of these kind of like reverse ideas to create these rising moments of micro moments of anticipation. And you know, we didn't have to use any like chords or music theory, so we get this kind of like stark, austere techno kind of sound that is very effective in clubs, or you know, techno is a pretty popular genre. And you know, I might throw in other like ear candy, like different kind of atmospheric one-shot samples that curate a certain environment. Like one strategy there is to like imagine the world that your track is taking place in, and what kind of sounds would be present there, and then you can drop those in at different places to create like, you know, a sense of immersion, but you're still focused on this like main lead element idea. Yeah, and also showing like reusing of sonic material to create a consistent environment, right? I'm not just like taking every random sound under the sun and throwing it in once, throwing it in, you know, a single time, but I'm kind of reusing some of the same elements to create that continuity. Yeah. So I know we're a little bit over time, but happy to stick around to answer any more questions if folks have them. Basically, the homework is going to be to make a track that has a lead element in it. You know, it can be from like a social media video or movie or film or whatever, or you can record it yourself if you have a fun catchphrase that you want to throw out. Rob, maybe you've got something from some wrestling people. Those could be fun. But yeah, happy to stick around and answer questions if folks have them.
I just don't think my pitch bend is working.
Okay.
I don't know if maybe you can come on.
Maybe pitch bend, yeah. What's up?
So adding one of the envelopes to my pitch makes it super squeaky.
Yeah, okay, so right now you have the sustain level is all the way at the top. So basically you're saying keep the pitch all the way at the top of its range. So that's gonna be really high frequency. So what we wanna do is click that top right one and drag it down. Yeah. So now you should get more of like a laser sort of. Oh wait, you don't have. Wait, what is this map? Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. So now, I want to click one of these.
So what do you want? Sorry.
Yeah, let's click one of these ones here. Okay, so that's better. And now I'll just turn the decay down a little bit more. There we go.
Got it.
So before you were just like saying, hold the pitch at the very top of its range. But instead we want it to decay all the way down to 0, which is its home rate. So it should start real high and then come down low.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Thanks. It also pitches it up quite a bit, and it doesn't sound as like deep as it did before too.
You might. You want to get your computer out real quick? So, oops, sorry, this is the wrong one. So, you might have it in you might have accidentally set it to bipolar, which makes the range go in both directions. So when you bring it down, actually, I need to see your computer to confirm this. Okay, so click on the matrix. Huh, no? Okay, wait. That seems right.
Okay.
Wait, let me.
I had it something before.
Let's see, so here's your vital. Oops. Turn that off. Okay, and then we've got F0. Okay, so that's good. Seems fine to me.
Okay. Because I had redone it, and it was.
Here, let's take the computer down here real quick.
And it was higher before on envelope 1, but I had set it. I just deleted that and put it on envelope 2 instead.
Okay. Yeah, so you definitely want envelope 1. Sure, see it. Because that gives you the volume.
Okay.
And this.
So I had it only set on envelope 1 before. That's why I guess why it was so pitched strange. And now it sounds normal, I think. But it was pitched weirdly before.
Let's turn this on too. Oh, okay. So on envelope 1, you need it to have some amount of sustain because it needs to. Because otherwise, you're telling it to like go completely quiet after this, which can be kind of cool for like a laser sound. But we do need some sustain. We just want it to start at max volume and then come down a little bit, so we get like a little bit of a volume climb.
Okay.
So now if we have this one, oops. Cool, so now we've got both the there it is. So now we're getting a little bit more of that sustain. And then it's probably well hard to hear on your laptop speakers. And it's probably a little too much knock. Or one thing we might want to do is turn this down to say 24, so it's a little bit
Thank you.
Sure.
Hands up, then we gonna drop.
Alright. Thanks for your class today.
Sure thing.